welcome to Mark and his YouTube channel and talking to all of his friends. And I have with me Ryan Brannan, the former commissioner for the state of Texas workers' compensation, who has moved on to greener pastures or greener waters. You can see his fish up above his head. But Ryan, I really appreciate you joining me here and talking through kind of your thoughts and processes on what has transpired over the past year and the couple years prior to that. First, if you want to give the audience kind of some feedback and some background on who you are and all the things that you have done in the state of Texas.
Sure. I'll try to keep it brief. My name is Ryan Brannan. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the immediate past workers' compensation commissioner in Texas. Gave up the post about a year ago, opened a lobby consulting practice, and left the agency in the very capable hands of Cassie Brown, who is currently serving as the workers' compensation commissioner.
Thanks, Ryan. I know you worked in the governor's office prior to that appointment, so you've got a long tenured political presence in the state of Texas, right?
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Mark. I worked under Rick Perry in his administration as an advisor to him for primarily insurance issues and some public health and other related issues. And all in all, I was appointed 3 different times, first by Governor Perry and twice by Governor Abbott as commissioner, and have roughly a decade in the executive branch of Texas state government. And am loving it and love being around the Capitol and working with all the good folks that try to make policy better and make the state of Texas better.
So prior to your appointment as commissioner, I don't believe that you had any specific experience with workers' compensation, although you mentioned the insurance industry. So for someone who's a political appointee, which 99% of the U.S. population doesn't live in that environment, what's it like to get appointed to a position overseeing a pretty significant part of the value proposition for Texas businesses? What is it like to go through that process?
Funny you mentioned that. I had really was not even considered personally to be in the mix for the job. I gave the governor a list of 10 people that I thought would be good, and then I got the call, and I wasn't obviously on the list I gave him. So I appreciate his confidence in me. It's funny that you mentioned the fact of businesses in Texas. Governor Perry and Governor Abbott both, in their terms, have gone around to other states and recruited businesses. And part of the sales pitch has been the Texas model for workers' compensation with lower premiums, better outcomes, quicker return to work for employees, and the fact that we have options. And so when Governor Perry first told me to go over there, I said, I spent most of the last several sessions working on the Affordable Care Act, some property and casualty issues, but workers' compensation has been working, so we haven't really had to dive into it very much from our vantage point. And he turned to me and he said, Ryan, I know, so don't screw it up. Oh yeah, it was a great group of people over there. There's about 600 plus hardworking Texans that are there just to try and make that system the most efficient and best it can be. And I think we've done that, and I'm very proud of the work that we've accomplished and that they're still accomplishing over there. It's a tremendous testament to their hard work.
Is it true that the only people who wear boots can work for the Department of Workers' Compensation?
Yes, 100%. Yep, you have to wear boots all the time. You can't wear any other shoe.
I gotcha. So when you're thinking about regulators and making decisions that have impact on lives, impact on employees, impact on employers, impact on what a Governor Perry or Governor Abbott might say when they're visiting California and go, hey, come move to Texas instead. Give us some insight on what happens kind of behind the curtain when regulators trying to balance the pros and cons. And there's probably good information and maybe a good business case for both sides. So both of them sound reasonable. I'm sure there are some circumstances where one is obviously like, well, that ain't happening. But I would assume that most of the situations, it's a little bit more gray. How do you go through that process and help make decisions like that?
That's a great question. When I first took the job, I basically kept hearing the same piece of advice over and over and over again. termed in different ways, but each one basically saying that the workers' comp system is a balancing act. That if you make a decision over here, that it's going to have an effect over there. And, I heard of like a balloon where if you put pressure on one side of the balloon, the other side expands. But the best way I heard about it was it's a chessboard on top of a needle. So each decision you make has may have the unintended consequence of toppling the chessboard and screwing up the whole system. So you have to really take into account the entire system and think through several moves ahead before you make your decision. I think what's critical in that is trying to look at the issue that's in front of you from all different sides. I always personally wanted to get a lot of stakeholder feedback, everything from the employer community to the carriers to the providers to the labor piece of it, and make sure that I fully understood, or at least to the best of our ability with the knowledge that we had at the time before we make a decision, what that decision would actually do to the system. And so, to me, getting all those different viewpoints put together before you make the decision, hopefully building some level of consensus, goes a long, long way in ensuring the sanctity of the system as a whole.
And I'm sure you get a lot of advice, or at least offered advice from a variety of people. I think the first time I met you was at maybe either SACA or IAIBC. I'm not sure which, but you were very approachable. And of course, being the commissioner of Texas, everybody and his brother wanted to tug on your sleeve and chat with you. So, how does that process work, again, in the decision-making process when you're a popular person? And you're popular anyway, right? I mean, you're just kind of that guy. But when you're the commissioner of Texas, you're extra popular.
Mark, flattery will get you everywhere, I guess. Is that what you're trying to tell me? I appreciate you saying that. Now, hopefully I'll get to see you some more as now that our legislative session's behind us. I plan on traveling around some more. So I enjoy seeing everybody. But to answer your question, I personally enjoyed it. Some of the advice was, maybe unwanted or just not good. But for the most part, everybody had a particular reason for wanting to pass along a specific piece of information or vantage point. And to be able to put that into the mix and discern it through the filter, I think helped a lot, and especially helped me learn a lot at the very beginning when I was drinking through the fire hose on how to do the job. So it was all very much, I won't say all, but most of it was very much appreciated.
Gotcha. So you made a decision last May in leaving that appointment. What kind of goes through your mind in regards to making a change? And that can be someone moving from regulator to private industry, or in your case, private lobbyist, or just people just making general change. What went through your head in making that change, especially at that particular time?
Well, what really went through my head was basically the unwritten rule in the governor's office when I was there, that an agency head has 3 to 5 year shelf life, which gives you 2 to 3 sessions. The first one being survival, get confirmed by the Senate, make sure everybody knows who you are and that you're trustworthy and that you're willing to work with them. Second session is to come back and try to do something to benefit your agency and to benefit the system. And then if needed, a third session, if you weren't able to accomplish all of your goals in the second, you have the opportunity to come back and do it again in the third session. And then the joke was, if you can't get it in the third session, you need to leave anyway because you're not any good. But in all seriousness, we accomplished a lot in our second session. When I first got there, I met again with stakeholders, met with my senior staff, next level down, and asked everybody for 3 to 5 changes that could make the system better. And I filtered that down to about 30 things that we wanted to change, some through rulemaking, some just through procedures, some that needed statutory change. And when the dust cleared after last session, we had accomplished pretty much everything we'd set out to do. So it was kind of one of those things where I can either hit the reset button and start it all over again, or I can go find new challenges. And it didn't take long for the new challenges bug to come in and take hold. But I will say that when I first was appointed and started to get to know other commissioners at SACA and IA, everybody said, "What are you doing? This is an old man's game." And And, there's some truth to that. Most of the commissioners, this may be their last major post, and some of them may just ride into retirement as a result. But I try to keep in mind that we all serve at the pleasure of the governor, for the most part anyway. And we're all one vote away from having to go do something else anyway. So you may as well be thinking about next steps. Andrew Heath in North Carolina is a prime example. He came on, he was a younger guy too, when he was first appointed, and now he's a judge, running on his own, elected official. So there's plenty of ways you can take it. And I always had the inkling to lobby. I moved to Austin to do it 10 years ago, and just came off my first session and thoroughly enjoyed it. So it was worth it.
So what's life like on the other side? Because you were the object of lobbying for a period of time as the commissioner, and now you're the one trying to tug on the shirt sleeves and say, hey, can I have 5 minutes to chat with you? I understand there's some restrictions on you in regards to lobbying for work comp specifically, so that's not an area of focus for you. But what's it like to make that transition from being the regulator, the object of desire, to the lobbyist who's trying to be the recipient of that?
Well, first of all, as a regulator, I don't think I've ever been called the object of desire. I think it's more like, what is this guy doing to our system, and blah, 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 this decision and that decision. But of course, as a regulator, you know that if all of your stakeholders are mildly unhappy, you're doing a good job. So, I think the transition has been great for several reasons. But after being a commissioner, and like you said, being lobbied consistently, I figured out exactly what the good methods are and the bad methods are to doing that, which I think makes me more effective at it. And then also, just the credibility that's built up from having run a state agency for several years, and getting a reputation for being honest and somebody that you can work with amongst the legislature, I think has gone a long way to make the job easier as well. So couldn't have done it without my time as commissioner. So I'm very thankful for that. And it's kind of fun to see the other side of the coin as well.
So in general, from a regulator standpoint, what is the next step? Obviously, you mentioned some that may be towards the twilight of their career, and so they're just kind of maybe right off in the sunset. You had a little bit longer journey to retirement potentially. What should regulators think in terms of that next step? Because you're right, most regulators, especially those who are appointed, you're one change in the governorship or a bad decision, or somebody really doesn't like you and is able to kind of draw a wedge from being on the unemployment line. So, what's going through that? Obviously, the first appointment was basically survival, like you said, and the second appointment is pretty much, you've got a plan and now you're executing it. So as you're launching into that third tenure, you're starting to think potentially about what's next. So describe, what oftentimes will go through regulators' heads. And I know a bunch of regulators, and you've probably had those discussions over beers in Williamsburg, Pennsylvania, or a variety of different places. So what happens in that regard?
I was sure you meant coffee, but yeah. I think it's different for everybody. Some people, it's all they think about, and some people, they don't think about it at all, and everybody else is probably somewhere in the middle. For me, it's just trying to keep an open mind, and while staying focused on the job, looking for opportunities when they arise, just kind of getting a feel for what's out there or what may be out there. But also at the same time, making sure that your integrity and your credibility are still in place so that you are able to make a leap if you need to. But again, I think it's everybody looks at it a little differently, and our terms are different. So not to put Carl on the spot, but he's got a 12-year term, and I think he just got reappointed to it. So he's probably trying to figure out how to get one of these fish over my head. But it's it's different for everybody. I certainly don't want to speak for any other commissioners on how they approach that.
So a very good political answer. I appreciate that. So to summarize, what's most exciting for you in the future? And the future could be vacation next week. It could be what you have planned for the next year. It could be your 5-year plan. It could be retirement. What's the one thing that helps you get up in the morning and go, Ryan, you look yourself in the mirror and go, Ryan, this is going to be a great day because it's leading towards that? What's that one kind of spark that you have?
I think for me, I'm just very competitive by nature. And so it's just getting up and, what are we going to do to win today? Is it going to be passing a bill that needs to be passed? Is it going to be, finding a new client? Is it going to be making sure that, somebody that needs help is getting the help that they need in order for them to achieve their goals? For whatever it is, the just desire to succeed just is fundamental within me. I hate to say it that way, but that's the truth. So every day is another opportunity to do better. And that's just kind of the way I look at life. So for me, that's an easy one.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Ryan. Any final thoughts or comments to those that may be maybe watching or listening to this? I don't think we're having closed captions, so I don't think they're going to read. But any final thoughts that you want to leave to your friends and colleagues?
I think if you need help in Texas, give me a call. I'm happy to try and help you out or point you in the right direction. I've always been friends with everybody in the workers' comp sphere that I'm aware of, and I've always been, as you put it, open and accessible, and really do enjoy helping and connecting people. So don't hesitate to reach out.
I look forward to our next in-person interaction.
Likewise, me too, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
All right, take care.